I love this man, James Blake. He is out with a new book. Please, good man. I feel like my mama. He's a good man. He's a good man. Ways of Grace, inspired by tennis legend Arthur Ashe's memoir, and by James' own experience being mistaken for a criminal by the NYPD. We're going to talk to him in just a moment, but first, take a look at his story. He was one of the world's top tennis players. James Blake, best known for his speed, the once fourth-ranked player in the world, retired from tennis in 2013, becoming chairman of the U.S. Tennis Association. But in 2015, Blake was back in the spotlight after being brutally body-slammed by a police officer in a case of mistaken identity.
He picked me up and body-slammed me and put me on the ground and told me to turn over and shut my mouth and put the cuffs on me.
New York City's police commissioner offering a public apology to the tennis star after an officer mistook him for a man they believe was involved in a credit card fraud investigation.
Should not have happened.
Now Blake is opening up about the ordeal and more in his new book, Ways of Grace. It is the perfect title. It's great to have James Blake with us again this morning. And I have to say, I'm about halfway through it. I can't wait for the July 4th break so I can finish it all. But first of all, I want to say this, that you did come to terms with the NYPD, and you're not going to pursue any more legal action. What came to that decision?
Well, I came to terms with the city. The city of New York was excellent, and we came together. We had a lot of meetings, and it's 2 years, and it seems like that's a long time, but I think that's pretty quick with the bureaucracy you go through to deal with a city as big as New York. And there's a fellowship where they have for 6 years. In 2-year stints, a fellow will be hired to handle cases like this, because over 50% last year were not seen to completion. So we want to make sure that people are seeing this to completion and getting the settlements, getting the disciplinary action required for these kind of incidents.
You were never looking for any financial benefit from this. No. You wanted, wouldn't it be nice to see this being implemented all around the country?
It would be. Like just holding police officers accountable, because I truly believe that over 95% of them, I don't know what the percentage is, but almost all of them are doing the job the right way. They're doing it with honor, with dignity, keeping our community safe. But the ones that aren't need to be held accountable, because they're making it tougher for the ones that are doing the job right, because it kind of erodes the trust a little bit if you see some that aren't doing it the right way and are getting away with it and able to continue those kind of actions.
Yeah, but you said the great majority are role models, such as yourself and the people that you write about in this beautiful book. And I know that Arthur Ashe, because it's a play off of his Days of Grace, the title of it. Who really inspired you? And I loved how one person in particular that you talked about.
Well, Arthur Ashe. I mean, when I thought about the book and decided to write it, we came up with the title first, and that put so much pressure on me, because Arthur Ashe is such a role model for me. Days of Grace is one of my favorite books of all time, and when I named it Ways of Grace and said, okay, this is going to have to be good, because I need to make sure that it lives up to his standards. And then getting to interview so many incredible trailblazers. I think my favorite was probably Billie Jean King. I've known her for such a long time, but I've never actually sat down and interviewed her. And it made me think about how much I learned about tennis history, and I learned about John McEnroe, Jimmy Connors, Bjorn Borg, those kind of rivalries. But I forgot to think about how much of a difference Billie Jean King and her Battle of the Sexes made for putting more eyes on the sport in general. It obviously opened up more doors for women, helped with Title IX, helped with equal pay for women. So it's such an amazing thing for WTA players, but also for ATP players. It rose our whole sport.
She was a great is a great activist. And it's wonderful, because the U.S. Open is coming up, and to have it named after Billie Jean King and Arthur Ashe, those two stadiums.
I've always felt so proud of that. The fact that they're not the greatest players we've ever had. They're pretty close, but they're the greatest activists, the greatest role models that I could think of to name our stadium and arenas after.
What are you going to tell your children? You have two small ones right now.
Well, there's a lot of great people in this book for them to look up to, and I think athletes in general sometimes get a bad rap. There's a lot of negative press around athletes, and I wanted to showcase that there's a lot of positive stories in sports and a lot of athletes that do the right thing with their voices, with their platform. LeBron James donating $40 million of his own money back to the community in Akron. There's so many positive stories that they can look at and see that sports can bridge gaps, religious gaps, gender gaps, any sort of equality gaps. it's a tremendous thing for kids, and I want my kids to be involved in sports as well, just to get that and to give them confidence. I see it in my 5-year-old already. You know, she's a little nervous, and then hopscotch, you know, turns into like, okay, it's a little competition, and she's got a new friend, and I love that about sports.
Well, thank you so much for sharing this and the people that you talk to. James Blake, he is a wonderful. Ways of Grace. It is out now.